recommend, this is actually my third or fourth year doing this with 9th grade, is I spend a lot of time online. In fact, you guys think you spend time online. I'm sure I outpace all of you. And so I want to start by having you repeat after me. Who the heck is this guy and what the hell does he know about this technology?
Who the heck is this guy and what the hell does he know about technology?
Good. So now you've got out of your system that sort of snarky reaction that you're going to have to what I'm going to say. So what I want to talk about is I want to talk about the fact that you guys are going online. Many of you are already enthusiastically online, and you really don't understand what's happening behind the scenes. And I think that that's really important. So I'm not going to talk to your parents. I know some of your parents. And this is a class that we're not going to have any notes from, right? So how many of you are on Facebook? Okay, how many of you are on Facebook but your parents don't think you are? Okay, so I'm sure there's a couple, but of course now you don't want to admit it. It's like, ooh, now I can blackmail you. So how many people are on Instagram? How many people know what Snapchat is? Okay, how many people are using Snapchat? So why don't we start there? So Snapchat, so what's the reason that people would use Snapchat? So for those of you that don't know what it is, Snapchat is a little chat app for your mobile device, and the purpose of it is that everything gets deleted, right? So you can send a photo, and then 30 seconds later it's deleted from the system. Is that how everyone believes it works?
No.
10 seconds.
Okay, 10 seconds. No. Well, someone knows correct. So here's the first thing I want all of you to really, really have sink in. Nothing is ever deleted from the internet. Nothing is ever deleted. You go onto Facebook and you delete a photo, it's still there. You go onto Facebook and delete your account, and 4 years later go back with that same email address and they'll say, hey, you're in our system, you want me to just restore your account? Nothing's ever deleted. So with Snapchat, the implication of that is that it is pretending to give you privacy that you don't have. And in fact, up until a couple of days ago, there were people showing how, and they were posting articles about how to save everything that was in Snapchat. Now you think about that because you're thinking, oh, well, I can Snapchat like an inappropriate picture, or I can be like flipping someone off and I can Snapchat them that photo and that'll vanish so they can't ever do anything with it. That's not true. And even with the new version of the software that supposedly fixed the problem, it's still easy to, for example, videotape a phone screen or to take a screen capture of a photo that you see. So you think the system's going to delete things, and it doesn't. And the reason that that's important is because I think that all of these are trying to give us this sense that there's really like these great privacy shields and all this sort of stuff, and it just isn't so. And that becomes really important. So how many people know what sexting is? Okay, we can use these words, okay. So sexting is when you send, for example, a naked picture of yourself to the person that you're dating, right? Now, it sounds mildly cute. Thankfully, I have never experienced such things. But the problem with that is that you are giving a huge amount of control to the other person. But even more than that, I actually called and talked to a lawyer friend of mine on the way here this morning, and she was telling me, and this is stuff that you guys are not going to believe me, but this is the actual legal truth, is that by sending a naked picture of yourself, for example, you can actually go onto the sex offenders registry for the rest of your life. And if you have any idea what that is, that's something where for the rest of your life you have to disclose that when you apply for jobs or apply for a mortgage for a house or anything. I know you guys are still young, but this is a huge black mark against you for your whole life. And the person that receives the picture, they can actually go to jail for having child pornography. So you think, oh, this is cute, I'm gonna like, you know, unbutton my shirt and send a picture to my boyfriend. That's really a disaster waiting to happen. And worse, the other issue of that is, you know, again, now we're moving into things like Facebook or Instagram, is you have no idea what you're going to do with your photo. And you can go and search online, if you were allowed to go online, and you can see story after story after story of someone who will send a semi-clothed picture to their boyfriend or girlfriend, who then says, well, this will be funny, and then they post it to something like Facebook, or they just put it up on their blog or their Tumblr blog, or they put it up on Pinterest or something, and once you've sent that image, you've lost complete control of it. And you can't delete it. And even if they say they've deleted it, it's probably still in their phone. Or worse, how many of you have something fancy like a smartphone, an iPhone, or an Android phone? Right, so when you plug that into your computer, what does it do? It does a sync, right? What does that sync do? It makes a backup copy of everything at that moment on that phone. And what does that mean? Is that if I sync my phone, and then the next day I go and delete all these inappropriate photos, they're still on my computer. So, you know, all of this stuff, privacy is not what you think it is. And I know this stuff's very compelling, and it's certainly interesting, and it's engaging, right? I mean, it's fun. For the people that are on Facebook, it's really fun. But nothing ever goes away. And in fact, we were talking just a few minutes ago that Facebook yesterday introduced a whole new feature that actually is very alarming from a privacy perspective. Did anyone pay attention? Anyone hear the news about this?
Isn't it like you can like search with like what like things your friends like what kind of movies and like, or like hanging out with that or something?
Right. So you're paying attention. That's good. She's reading the newspaper or something. So Facebook introduced something called social graph search.
Oh, right.
And what this means is that everything that you've ever put on Facebook is now accessible not only to all of your friends, including new friends you didn't have when you first posted it, but to friends of friends, and potentially to the public at large. So this means you first get onto Facebook and you guys are just starting out with this stuff, and you say, well, all the people that are on Facebook with me are all my friends here at Shining Mountain, and that's awesome. So we can like post about parties, we can do all this sort of stuff, and it's all good, right? No one else is going to see it. Well, first off, other people can see it. And at the end, I'm going to show you how to look at your own privacy settings. But now this means that 6 years from now, there you are, you just graduated college, you're looking for a job, they can go and look back at all this data. And that kind of stuff is really concerning for people that have been on for a long time, because when you first get on, you actually, I think, generally expose more information, and as you spend more time online, most people tend to contract down and be more conscious about privacy. And why is this an issue? It's an issue because you just don't know who's looking at this stuff. And so one of the things that I see all the time is people will post photos of themselves, right? Look, I'm ready for prom. And where's that typically taken? In your front yard. And what do you typically see in the background is the house and the street number on the house, right? So if you don't think this through, what's the problem? The problem, there's no problem, right? Well, the problem is that there's something called Google Street View. If you have a street number and you know what city they're in, it would take you no more than about 10 or 15 minutes to figure out exactly where they live. And what are the odds of that happening? You know, probably fairly low, but do you want some creep online, some weird old guy or something, who's like looking through all your stuff and is like, now I want to go and meet this person because they look really cool. And then 20 minutes later, they know where you live, they know what school you go to. If you're using, does anyone use Foursquare? Right? Or any other, or do you check in at locations when you're on Facebook Mobile? Right? So now you can actually give people a nice schedule. Here's where I go, here's what time class ends. Here's, when I'm done with class, I always go up to Amante. And now my computer's full of photos of you. And you're using all this stuff thinking, this is okay, it's just my friends in Shining Mountain. You know, so that's sort of the core thing that we wanted to get at on this talk right now, is that your sense of privacy is false. But, you know, the other big piece is what happens when you delete something?
It's not really deleted.
Nothing, right? It's not really deleted. To the point where, for example, Twitter, for people using Twitter, or if you use another app that also broadcasts out onto Twitter, Twitter literally sends tape archives to the Library of Congress. So they are actually archiving in the Library of Congress the entire stream of public Twitter messages.
That's a lot.
That's amazing.
It is a lot, but it's a really, I mean, it's an interesting data set to look at from a researcher's perspective. But it also means that, you know, when the election happens and you're saying, boy, I hate Obama, we should just go kill the guy. That's a problem. That's a problem for a couple of reasons. Not the least of which is that if you actually have a credible threat, then the cops will come by and visit. And that's happened time and time and time again. And people are very surprised that, like, you know, the Secret Service are monitoring things like Facebook. But it's also a problem because it's there forever. Now it's actually there in the Library of Congress, for goodness sakes. It's not even just like there on some server in some obscure location, but it's something where researchers can go and analyze all that. So again, let me ask, how many of you are on Facebook that your parents don't think you are? Okay. I knew of other kids in her class that were on Facebook, and I would ask their parents, so are your kids using all this online stuff? Oh no, we keep them away from the internet because it's not safe. And it's like, okay, but that's what the adult expression we use for that is a fool's paradise, right? Is if you completely ignore the reality of what's going on around you, you can be very happy. However, their kids were using this stuff and there was no one watching what they were doing. Now, how many of you think that that's a good idea? Do you think you're old enough and mature enough to make decisions about things as important as potentially going to jail over doing something dumb? You think you're all good to go and ready and just give me unfettered access? How many of you have done searches and ended up on sites that were perhaps a little more adult than you were expecting? No, see, no one's going to admit to that. Okay, there you go. That is extraordinarily common. And in fact, the most commonly searched word on Google is the word sex. And here's the thing, I understand curiosity. My generation, we looked at National Geographic. No, not quite. You guys have no idea what I'm talking about, which is just...
Is that fine?
But, again, just like when you do a backup of your phone and the data from your phone's now on your computer, when you visit something in a web browser, it keeps copies of it, just simply because it then runs faster. But you have what's called a cache, a C-A-C-H-E, cache, and it saves everything you ever visit. So that means if you're just curiously poking around, which, all innocent, things can be misconstrued. So now, imagine you do that and you're looking around, or maybe like your little brother or sister like sneaks on and looks up naughty words. And then your boyfriend or girlfriend sends you an inappropriate text photo, right, via text. And somehow you end up where the cops are investigating you. And now it's just like, holy cow, you have naked pictures on your phone when we look on your computer, and the cops can literally walk in and take your computers and walk out. I mean, they can do that, and then they can spend weeks analyzing it. And then they look on that and they're like, and you're looking at naked pictures on the computer, you have a problem. And the consequences can be so dire from that, that in the very worst possible case, they could actually take you away from your parents. So all of this stuff, it all seems like, oh, this is just silly fun. But there's layers to all this that I think are really important. And, like on Facebook, Facebook is a really good example because there's a lot of stuff that shows up there that people think is private, and at least twice in the last 3 years, even just the one-to-one private messages that people have, those have ended up being open to the public. Right? So there you are, just emailing your friend or having a chat with them on Facebook. Would you like that to suddenly show up for everyone else to see? And can you do that? Imagine now when we get into like cyberbullying. You guys all know what that is, right? I mean, all these fancy names for things. So cyberbullying is really easy. And in fact, one of the worst things about the online world is that because you're safely behind your computer and you're in your own house and you're safe, then you can just attack everybody. It's fun. Why not? Just be mean to people. And so a lot of people that would be way too terrified to ever go up to someone and look them in the eye and say, I disagree with your opinion, I think you're stupid. I don't actually. But people would never have the courage to do that, but online they can just go at it. And where it gets really bad is exactly your age group. And how many of you know someone that has just had all these just really mean things posted about them? Right, I mean, I know of a situation where like 10 months later, a child's parents, the child was just like, why is this person still being mean to me? We don't even know each other anymore. We're like going to different schools now. And neither of them go to Shanty Mountain. And the parents went and looked 10 months later into their message log. And again, Facebook keeps everything. And they're looking at these just really, just appalling, horrible messages, really, really mean messages. And they called the cops. And the cops then opened up an investigation against this child from something that happened almost a year earlier. And again, So there's two issues there. There's the issue of don't be mean, which is just an easy one. And then there's the issue of nothing's ever deleted. And I think the child who was doing the hostile messages thought, well, if I delete them from my computer after I send them, they're gone. It's like text messages, right? If you send someone a text message and then you delete it from your phone, it's gone, right? No one has any record of it. Well, yeah, the other person does. Hello. You know, and they could actually take a screen capture. They can, you know, there's ways you can pull all your text messages out of those backups. Yeah. Do you have a question?
Oh, yeah. Can you go to juvenile hall for like life if you do this type of stuff?
For life?
That wouldn't make sense because eventually you wouldn't be a juvenile.
But like,
No, I don't know that you would get a life sentence for something like this.
I've been in here a long
but it's
time.
pretty serious stuff, you know, and that's the thing is that this is something where as time has passed, it's become more serious. Because there's all these incidents, and again, you know, if you go and read the paper or something, there are these terrible stories about a kid who, like, it's a club. Everyone, like, we're all just going to go after Mary, and it's just funny, you know. But poor Mary ends up killing herself, you know, or going to another school, or their family literally moves to another state. You know, that's pretty dire consequences. And for someone your age, everything should be all like, you know, a bowl of cherries. You should be all looking towards the fun and not thinking about all the terrible stuff. And I mean, you know, when I was a kid, I dealt with a bully. And that's just, I think, part of human nature, unfortunately. But the online version of it is much, much worse because, again, it's people that don't have the courage to come up to you and say, you know, I'm going to kick your butt after school. You were mean to me. It's like, okay, but then at least it's resolved. As opposed to for the rest of your life, I'm going to say mean things about you. Okay, I don't care. But now when you do it online and I'm trying to get a job, right? Or my uncle, my favorite uncle, is reading my Facebook page, and they're like, "Who is this person? Why are they so mean to you?" You know. So, you know, one of the things to think about there with the whole cyberbullying thing is it's really just the next generation of the golden rule. Is how do you behave towards other people, in that you expect them to behave towards you. And the thing is that that whole sort of logic of cyberbullying can be used in reverse. If there's one person who's really mean to everybody, all of you can get together and isolate that person and tell them, you know, you're just not a nice person. That's why you don't get invited to our parties. That's why you don't get to come to the movies with everybody. So we would love to have you join us if you start to be nice. Don't be mean. This isn't hard. If you have some stuff going on, talk to your mom, talk to your dad, but don't take it out on us. Does that make sense? So what else should we talk about? We have time. So, how many people have smartphones that are on right now? Okay, I know you're not supposed to have them, right? There really is a lot less privacy than you think there is. There's a lot less ability to remove things than you think there are.
Can your parents just go online and go to their bill and just read all your texts?
They can't read your text messages themselves.
They can't?
But they can see who you're texting and how often and incoming, outgoing.
Oh, so they can see, like, they can see people's whole conversation.
Right, and it depends, you know. Okay. So, you know, on text messages themselves, it depends on what you're using, right? If you're one of these people that says, well, I can text message using Instagram, right? What is it? How many of you understand what I'm talking about there? Because this is a really common way of tricking your parents, right? Because they look and it's like, honey, you're not using text messaging. Thank you. We had that agreement. And you're like, yeah, right, Mom. So what you do is you write it, right? The way I understand this works is you write a message, you screenshot it, and then you post that to Instagram, and then the comments under that then become the discussion.
Really? I've never seen that before.
Right. Well, I have seen people doing this. And here's the thing is, again, this is open to everyone that follows you on Instagram. So it's not even a private conversation at that point, right? But it's not something you can delete. And so it might be something that tricks your parents because they're not sophisticated enough. But that doesn't mean that it's not something they could find out if they wanted to investigate. And there are software programs. So for example, instant messaging or iMessage. iMessage is a great example. If you have an iPhone and you're sending a text message to someone else that also has an iPhone and you on a computer program on someone's computer screen. So I can have on my Macintosh, I can have text messages from my friends that also have iPhones. They can show up on my Mac.
Okay.
So now you can imagine that your parents might have that set up.
Well,
You know? Whether they should, whether your rights of privacy are, that's all somewhat ambiguous, but generally as someone who's under 18, your right of privacy is about that big. You know, and I argue with this with my kids all the time. It's like, you have no right to even look at who I called. It's like, hey, I'm paying the bill for nothing else. I will continue to retain that right. But all of these things, there's monitoring programs that your parents probably should use. And not because they don't trust you, but because they can help you make smart decisions as other things happen. So, you know, I saw yesterday, I guess it was, my son, someone had shared a link with him. And the link was, get a free iPad. I don't know if you've seen this sort of thing.
It's like, it's on Facebook. It's a hack block.
Right. And so my goal isn't to say that's a scam. My goal is to have him be able to think smartly, to be able to look at it and himself realize it's a scam. For example, why would someone give one away? How are they going to pay for it? You know, this is something where they're going to go into the Apple store and spend $600 and then give it to you because you clicked the link. Does that even make sense?
no.
You know, but especially in the sort of high school and college group, a ton of people fall for these things. You know, the more sophisticated one is see who unfriended you, right? But it's the same thing, is that all you're doing is installing bad software which will then send all your friends a message telling them that they can see who unfriended them, right? So it just propagates itself as a computer virus. And you don't know what it's doing. You know, you don't know if the fact that when you go and type in your phone number, it might email your phone number to some third party, right? And you're just innocently sending a text message to someone, or you're sending a message on Facebook. So I mean, all this stuff I actually find pretty alarming. And what's alarming about it is that there are people out there right now, and what they're trying to do is figure out how to like pull information out of you. They're trying to figure out how to get things from you that you don't want to give them, and from me, and from you. You know, how can they get my credit card? How can they get my social security number so that they can then apply for credit cards in my name and go buy fancy expensive things, and then I'm stuck having to pay the bill? This happens all the time. And all this sort of stuff, it all starts with not understanding how privacy actually works online. So smartphones, computers, all the internet services, every online service I know has some issues with it, has some danger with it. Even something as simple as Xbox Live. You guys remember anyone on Xbox Live? Oddly guys. So Xbox Live, you can put in all sorts of personal information, upload your photo, right? All these sort of things. Xbox Live is run by Sony. Sony's not really great at managing data security. So they've multiple times had problems where people have broken in and taken literally hundreds of thousands of records. Now, what's the big deal? The big deal is that now you're on the radar screen. So now if they know your name and your address and the kind of technology you have, and maybe you've entered your age, that's enough information for them to start digging around, and even with just a piece of software, they can then start doing things like applying to colleges on your behalf. And that's a problem. You know, because now you're starting to get a record, you're starting to get data in the system that's not something you want. Or worse, obviously, again, applying for a credit card. And this happens so frequently that the credit card companies are actually having to reinvent how credit cards work. You know, I mean, it used to be, it was just the thing on the front. If you look at a credit card, I wouldn't be surprised if half of you have credit cards. So on a credit card, there's the number and the expiration date on the front, and then you sign it. And that turns out not to be safe enough. So in the last couple of years, now they have this little secret number on the back, and that's to prove that the card's in your hand. And that's proving not to be enough either. And so we live in a world where you go to somewhere like, you know what Redbox is?
Yeah.
The DVD rental thing. So here in Boulder, someone actually went into one of the stores that had a Redbox, and they installed a duplicate card swiper. And people would go and they'd go to rent something, they'd swipe it through both the real one and their fake one, and then the guy went back a couple of days later, pulled it off, walked home, and had tons of credit card data that he could then use for fraudulent activities. I mean, all these things are really smart, but they also highlight the dangers there. Okay, so I would watch him.
Well, we already know that.
But, here's another thing to think about is, so for those of you that have smartphones, or even those of you that have just more simple feature phones, does anyone in the room not have a cell phone? Okay, so every single person has a cell phone. If you lost your cell phone, how long would it take for someone to get onto it and read everything you have?
Well, they have to jailbreak my phone.
Why?
Because I'm password.
So?
How hard do you think that is to break?
I don't know.
And how hard do you think it is to plug it into a computer?
But then
Right.
It has to be unlocked.
With your own.
No, they
With your own software, whatever.
Okay, so this is a great conversation, and the reason that this is an interesting conversation is because you're relying on the cell phone manufacturers to keep your stuff private. And I will suggest to you that that might be a dangerous thing to rely on. And I can tell you that people that are motivated can break into anything. There's nothing you can do ultimately. If someone really has the resources and really wants to break in, they will really break in. I don't care what passwords you have on there. I don't care if you've already jailbroken it and have a whole separate operating system running on it. On Android phones, on all these things. Because if you think about it, the goal of these phones is to be connected and to be online. And so there's that fine line between how do I block this and how do I make it continue to be something that actually encourages you to be online and get all the resources and pops up a coupon because you're near a store and all these sort of things. And so one of the things to think about is, again, when you're young enough that you don't have necessarily your own laptop or desktop computer, how many people have their own computer? What an affluent culture we live in. So for those of you, maybe not so much, but for everyone else, your phone is like your whole world. And if you lose that, number one, you've lost a lot of stuff, but if someone else is now reading all that, it might be a friend, but it might also be someone that has perhaps less positive intentions. Did you have a question? Are you just stretching? Well, we did the 7th inning stretch one more time, so we're going to continue to go. And again with computers, someone breaks into your house while you're at school and they take your computer away. How long does it take for them to get all your data there? All your email, all your messages back and forth between people, all the photos that you've taken and backed up, all those archives of your cell phone synchronizations. It's all right there. That's easy. And now they can just spend their leisure trying to figure out how to get in and what to do with this stuff. And oh, here's a funny picture. Let's go post this online. So there are sites that their purpose in life is to let people say mean things about other people, like a bad date stories site, things like that. Well, people can start posting pictures of you and saying that you actually go out with 22-year-olds and that you're such a loser and all these sort of things. And the thing is that that stuff then again is part of the permanent record. And when people start looking for jobs and stuff, this is something that now happens so often that there are services that claim, I don't know how they could possibly do this, but they claim that if you pay them money, they'll delete inappropriate content from your Facebook page. And the reason I don't know how they can do that is because unless they work at Facebook, they don't have access to Facebook's backups of the data. But this is a really big problem, and at CU, this is something where they actually, as part of freshman orientation, they tell people, think what you put online. If you go to this wicked good party and at 4 in the morning, the 4 of you are like throwing up on each other and laughing your heads off, that might not be a great photo to post. Because 2 years later, when you're down in Manhattan at Wall Street trying to get a good job so you can have a good career and have all the stuff you want in your life, they're going to spend money to have researchers go and investigate what you've done in the online world. And they find that photo and they're like, I'm sorry, you're not for us. Really? That was from 2 years ago. Come on. It's like, that's the way it is. And that's going to start now because now you guys are already on Facebook. And worse, now, with this new thing that Facebook introduced yesterday with their Facebook social graph search, that also means that the stuff you're posting now is going to be even easier for people to find. And what if you're busy communicating back and forth and something happens and now we become enemies? well, how much of my data do you have? And what can you do with it? Because you're smart and you're malicious. I'm not actually talking to you. Although it might actually be accurate description. So the really big thing I want you guys to think about is the whole issue of how little privacy you have and how much privacy you think you have. And that goes all the way from your cell phones and your parents' cell phones to computers and everything you do online. And so what I want to do is I want to wrap up by just showing you real quickly on Facebook how to go and look at your privacy settings. And I will tell you, if you say, oh, I changed those a couple of months ago, it's all good, or when I first connected, I went and made all these setting changes, that's not good enough. Because what Facebook does is every 3 to 6 months, they introduce a new way of doing your privacy settings. And by the way, we never really understood whether you were cool with this, so we're going to default to having it be public. Yes?
Well, I have a question. Half of us have been on Facebook for at least 3 years, since like 6th grade. So what do we do if we've already done something on Facebook? Is there any way to get rid of it or no?
Well, the best thing you can do is at least go back on your timeline and just spend some time, and maybe do this with a parent sitting with you, because they'll actually maybe have more of a, if you will, worldly view on what's going on, and go through and look at, you know, some of your first things. And it's really classic. You get on a social network and the first things you do are fairly stupid, because you really don't, it's this whole idea that there's hundreds of, I mean, there are literally over 1 billion people on Facebook. That is an unimaginably large number. And how many of them are looking at your update? Who knows? You know, when you post something and you have 4 friends, but you say it's for the public, then all 1 billion people can see it. And not only can that 1 billion people see it, but then things like Google can see it. So now it can be in the Google search index. So someone doesn't even have to go on Facebook to see that content. You know, so the first thing I would definitely say is go back and look and at least delete the things that you didn't like, or delete the things that you think reflect poorly on you. You know, and you know, is that a real delete? No, but it's better than just leaving it out there. And so theoretically, it's at least a little more private. But we have just a couple of minutes.